Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ sanghaṃ namissāmi. Welcome. Welcome to everybody here in the Vihara with us for this first evening of our retreat time. Lovely to see you all. And also big welcome to everybody who's joining us online. Thank you for being with us. And I hope your time zone isn't too inconvenient to you. So we've had a very good day of practice, those who were able to be with us for the whole day. And just to have the time to really focus on developing our mindfulness, sitting and walking, and simplifying, being attentive to, just what is what is present in this moment. And I thought I'd say a few words tonight about body awareness because, talk about it a lot. The Buddha spoke about it a lot. And many teachers will advise, to really focus on the body aspect of our experience when we're meditating, to keep coming back to the body, to really rest in the body, and to, when the mind goes into thinking, into when we're aware of emotions coming up, when we're aware of issues arising for us, things that we're worried about, things that the mind can obsess about, memories coming up and so forth, all the mental contents. The advice is very often, well, just come back to the body, simplify, see how you feel in relation to this experience, what's actually going on right now. And this really is good advice. It's a very helpful way to move through difficulties, all the kind of defilements, all the kind of obstructions that can come up for us in our meditation practice. We can move through them quite effectively through actually redirecting our attention to the body. So I thought I'd talk about body awareness. And there is a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya called Anapanasati Sutter, which is the body awareness sutta. And it's a really good one to study, to contemplate, to take in again and again. The Buddha says, there are different ways that we can develop body awareness. And in the context of a retreat, there are really 4 different ways that he outlines in this sutta. He also talks about 2 other methods, and I think I'll just mention all of them, and you can consider them as we continue our retreat. So the first and the most probably popular way to meditate for most people, the best object of meditation is the breath. Anapanasati, awareness of the in-breath and the out-breath. And this, when the Buddha speaks about the 4 satipatthanas, and the Satipatthana Sutta speaks about body awareness, in the Ayya Sati Sutta, he always starts with he starts with Anapanasati. There's also a sutta. Next door to the body awareness sutta is the Anapanasati Sutter. And this is all about breath awareness, another wonderful meditation teaching. So the breath is really important for us as an object of meditation. It's also really important for us, full stop, isn't it? And we can reflect, it's the breath that gives life. I mean, without breathing, we wouldn't last very long at all. Just a matter of minutes. And this process is going on throughout our lives. From the very moment we're born, we have to take that first breath, don't we? Everyone is very motivated to get us breathing when we're born. It's essential. And, the last thing, the last breath at the end of the life signifies, the death is coming, death is approaching. And the Buddha had, encouraged us to really make much of this phenomenon in our practice, to really be aware of the breath. We can become very adept at this, and we can notice how soothing, how delightful, actually, how beautiful, how wonderful it is to pay attention to the breath. It's an object of meditation that leads us inward, leads us onward. And it really is very pleasant to allow the mind to settle and really focus in on the breath, noticing how it's changing constantly, and noticing all the subtle nuances of the breath. It's endlessly interesting. The more we pay attention, the more we can really learn. And it is always to be the natural breath. We don't have to kind of try to control it in any way. And just notice then how the breath actually changes depending on the state of mind. It changes depending on how attentive we are to it. So it's really quite fascinating. We start noticing the breath, and slowly but surely it becomes more and more subtle. And it's quite remarkable, really, because as the breath becomes more subtle, so our mindfulness has to become more sharp in order to discern the breath. And so it really leads us to a greater mindfulness as it becomes more refined. The two go together, don't they? The mind and the breath. And we can learn so much about our mental state from observing the breath. So this is the first way in which the Buddha encouraged us to pay attention to the body. And so we feel the breath in the body, and we can note that and note, where do we feel the breath? How does it manifest? Where does the mind go when we're advised to observe the breath? And it can be all different ways. Probably no two people observe the breath in quite the same way. So we can see where the mind goes, see where we want to rest our attention. It could be the belly, it could be the chest, it could be the nostrils, it could be some point at the entrance of the nostrils. It could be the overall effect of the kind of rise and fall of the breath in the body as the body kind of inflates and deflates, and so on. And it's for each one of us to see, how do I experience this? How is it? And to really get interested in this beautiful, this powerful, this very helpful object of meditation. Helpful particularly, I find, because it's changing all the time. So we can sort of, it's almost like we're on a journey with the breath. It's taking us somewhere. It's this rise and fall, this up and down. It's very much a part of nature, of course, and it's just like the tides, the waves on the shore. It's like so many things in nature that come and go, rise and fall, and the very nature of nature itself, which is that things arise and things pass away. So there's a great deal of Dhamma to be discerned in this Anapanasati practice, mindfulness of the breath. So the second way the Buddha advised us to pay attention to the body is to look at the posture, notice how we're sitting, how we're lying down, how we're standing, and how we're walking. So we have these 4 postures. And on a retreat, we mostly work with the sitting and the walking postures, don't we? But there's also lying down. And at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, we're generally lying down. And so not to neglect this opportunity to also be practicing mindfulness. And it's good if we can watch the breath and observe the body, lying down body, right up until the last breath before we drop off to sleep. Actually, I find when we really pay attention to the breath in this way, we don't tend to drop off to sleep as quickly as we might normally. But that's not necessarily a problem, because if we're really attentive, mindful, watching the breath, we're very relaxed. We're relaxed. So we can lie down, rest the body, recharge the body, and not necessarily drop off to sleep as early as normal, not necessarily sleep as much on a retreat, but still be able to feel rested and revitalized in the morning. I'm not suggesting that we all stay up all night watching our breath, but just to see, what happens. Not like an encouragement to stay awake, but rather watching the breath, just see how it is, see how much sleep we actually need. And oftentimes on a retreat, we might need a little less sleep because we don't have as much mental activity tiring us out. We don't have as much interaction tiring us out. So just see how it is for you. And then in the morning, when we wake up, let the first thing that we do be to notice the breath, notice the body lying down, come back to the meditation. See how quickly you can remember to do that. Myself, I tend to be quite groggy when I wake up. I have no idea who I am, what I am, where I am. Quite often, and that's actually very interesting because it's like, oh, I haven't firmed up yet. I haven't actually identified with this one yet. I haven't become somebody again yet. So it's actually very nice to notice if you're like that, if you're like me, in the morning you wake up, there's really nobody there for a moment or two at least. It's quite nice to notice that. Notice the absence of self, if that's how it is for you. So even the groggy sort of, clueless sort of early morning mind can be a bit of a teacher for us. It can be a source of dharma for us, of wisdom. But then as soon as we kind of recognize that there's somebody here, come back to the breath, come back to the body. And so the Buddha said, we have these 4 postures, we can really pay attention to them. And of course, the encouragement there is to pay attention throughout the day, watch the body moving. And this is actually the third of the methods of body awareness practice. To be with the body, whatever it's doing. So eating, going to the toilet, brushing our teeth, moving about here and there, standing up, sitting down, all the body activities. Every single one of them can be a source of wisdom, a source of mindfulness, an opportunity to meditate. On a retreat, we have more chance to develop this kind of continuity of practice, don't we? Because during the busy lives we have, for many of us, it's like we have maybe a session in the morning to meditate. We maybe make some time in the evening and we can really let go of all our daily cares and focus on the breath, focus on the body. But on a retreat, we have nothing else to do, I hope. We have the opportunity to really observe throughout the day all the happenings physically for us. And let that be the focus of your attention, and see, how relaxing it can be, how easeful it can be for the body, for the mind, to be embodied in all that we do. So these are the ways in which we can really consider the body during retreat time. And there is one more. The fourth way is to consider the elements. Consider the 4 elements that make up all of the physical world. And I won't say too much about these because I talked about them quite recently. But basically, we can observe the body in different ways. Observe the weight of the body, the solidity of the body, the substance of the body, the shape of the body, earth element, and water element, which kind of holds the body together and gives us the sense of all the fluidity, the flow, the pulses in the body, the saliva in the mouth, the moisture in the body, water element, and then fire element. We can just pay attention and notice the temperature here and there. You know, inside it can be very warm, very hot even. The surfaces may be cool here and there. We might notice as we digest our meal, how the heat, the warmth sort of permeates the body after eating, or how in the early morning before we've had anything to eat, there's a coolness, even a cold feeling in the body, and so forth. We can notice the different parts of the body and how they have different temperatures. So this way is another way of really focusing attention on the body and seeing it in all these different lights. The 4th element is air element, and that's the movement of the body and the breath itself. And it has the quality of vibration, fluctuation. So all these ways of looking, feeling, perceiving, understanding the body. We have the other 2 ways, which are more contemplative. The first is to consider the asubha qualities of the body. Asubha means actually unbeautiful. I suppose you could say ugly. I mean, maybe it's even a bit more than ugly. In some ways, the invitation to consider all the parts of the body inside the body, you know, consider the skin, first of all, consider the parts of the body that we can see, the hair, the teeth, the nails. And then there's a whole lot more, isn't there, within. And the Buddha encouraged us to just really consider what the body's made of. We don't necessarily have to know all the anatomy. Just know what you know and use that for the investigation. We know the body's made up of muscles and sinews and joints and bones and, you know, various organs within the body, and we can consider those. There's actually a chant that we often do in the monasteries, just a list of all the body parts. And it includes all the solid parts. I've really been talking more about the earth element aspects of the body, the solid parts of the body, but it also includes all the liquid parts, you know, the blood and pus and mucus and phlegm and the oil of the joints and urine, so forth. So just considering, you know, this is actually what we're looking at when we look at somebody else. What's here inside of this one? It's very helpful to consider this. I learned a lot when I was a medical student. I got the amazing opportunity to dissect a human body. And the body that I and my dissecting partner, he was a very tall chap and very big. So we had this huge body to dissect. And we were lucky, you know, because it was easier to really tease out the nerves and the blood vessels and so forth. But we really took a lot of time. We took I think it was about 8 or 9 months altogether of slowly but surely, you know, dismantling this entire body, starting on the surface and then working our way through all the different layers and going into the abdomen and the chest cavity and just seeing what's there. And we had being medical students, we had to learn the anatomy, all the detail. But actually the really powerful and significant part of it for me was simply this is the body and the feel of it and the sight of it. And of course it wasn't as it is now for us. It wasn't alive, it wasn't warm, it wasn't moving. It was pickled in formaldehyde. It had a horrible smell, but not as horrible as the smell of our bodies, actually. We opened them up. But it had a horrible smell, and it was, it was very strong fumes coming off the body, and it was frozen. It was solidified. So many things to take in, to observe. I have, great gratitude to the gentleman who left his body to medical science. I really do. I think of him, and I feel he really blessed us with his body. And so many people do this, leave their bodies to medical science, so that young students can, have this kind of an experience. So, we don't all get the chance to dissect dead bodies. We don't need to. We just know. We can learn. We can consider what this body's made of, and let it inform us. Just let it kind of do its work. It's a contemplation. It's particularly helpful if we're very attracted to bodies, if we're very attracted to our own body, or we're enamored of other bodies. It's not to make that wrong or anything. It's just a balancing perception, a way to calm the mind, actually, to calm the passions, to see more clearly. It's not always a good idea to do this kind of contemplation if one is not experiencing a lot of desire, passion. It's really a very good counterbalance for strong energies in that direction. But if one is already pretty fed up with the body, if you already feel, I don't really want to identify with this, then it's not so necessary. So we can consider the contemplation if it's useful for us. And if it's not useful, then we can put it to one side. In the same way, the Buddha gave the sixth method of body contemplation, which I'd like to just mention to you. For some people, it's really helpful to do this, again, as a kind of balancing for the desire for life, the lust for life. And that is to consider the body after death, to consider what happens to bodies when they die. The Buddha, gave us the cemetery observations, and he described in detail the process of decay and all the different kind of ways in which it can manifest. And so I can invite you, if you're interested, to consider the cemetery observations, to have a look at the sutta. And personally, as quite a greedy type, I'm more of a greed type than an averse type. People fall into various categories, but we can perhaps notice if we're tend towards great love of life, passion for life, or whether we tend towards aversion to life, not really being so happy to be here. Or we can notice if we don't really fit into either of those categories and we're more confused, more, basically not sure how to practice, not sure what we are, more of an ignorant type. And there are different ways to practice depending on the type that one is. So it's helpful to just consider, what kind of person am I? And for myself, I'm, as I said, more of a greed type. And so I've actually spent quite a lot of time contemplating my own death and what will happen to this body after it dies. And putting aside the distinct possibility that it might be cremated and just burned up, which is very clean and very quick. How do bodies decay? And really taking on board the way that they change, And I've had the opportunity also to see a number of dead bodies as they decay. And that's been a great help, actually. Again, it has the effect of sobering, calming, grounding the mind. I don't find it at all morbid. I don't find it really disgusting or horrible at all. Although the first impression we get sometimes when we read these teachings is one of wanting to shy away from these realities. But actually, when one contemplates a decaying corpse, it's very grounding. It's very calming. There's something about the truth that's very peaceful, isn't there? You know, and I know that a number of people, teachers, Joanna Macy's one, she's made a practice of finding dead things and just putting them on the shrine and just watching how they change. And as she describes, there's a great beauty to this. It's quite interesting. Yes, there can be an unpleasant smell, and it can be sights that don't immediately call the attention. There's an instinct actually to want to turn away from these things. But in fact, when we really look and see how things change after death, it's really quite amazing and quite beautiful, the process of decay. And then what's left, you know, and slowly but surely everything fades away. And then just the hardest parts of the body are left. And then they break apart, you know, and so on. They crumble away. In the end, everything crumbles into dust. But this is a recycling, isn't it? It's like there's a, you know, it's like a gift. It's like all of this form moves on into other forms. It nourishes other beings. It nourishes other possibilities, you know. So this is a way also of recognizing that we don't own this body. We're going to lose this body. And this body is part of nature. It's part of nature just like every other material thing on the planet. Calming, soothing, really revealing contemplations. So, you know, I won't say more about these because on a retreat, we really want to almost, I would suggest, go the next step. Rather than contemplating, just come to what's real right now and be with this body right now. But for future reference, consider this sutta and consider these contemplations. The Buddha praised body awareness very highly in this sutta. He gave a number of beautiful similes to describe how if we have awareness of the body well developed, he said, we're able to know all things. We're able to perceive all dharmas. He said, it's just like the ocean, this awareness that we can develop. He said, all the streams flow into the ocean. And so this body awareness practice enables us to see all the dharmas. He said, if we don't have body awareness, you know, he gave some similes for the risk, the danger, the difficulty that we have maintaining our equipoise, our equanimity, keeping clarity, being able to surf the waves of the defilements, of the ups and downs of life. He said, if one does not have body awareness, he said, it's as if you have a wet ball of clay. And imagine somebody takes a big stone and chucks it at the ball of clay. What happens to the clay? It loses its shape. It gets splattered everywhere. It's traumatized. It's deformed. He said, in the same way, if we don't have body awareness, when the difficult events happen in life, we're thrown around, we're crushed, you know, we're defeated. He said it's like an empty water jug. If one doesn't have body awareness, anyone can pour water into that jug. We can We can be thrown around by all the inputs that can happen in life. And he said it's like being a dry stick that can be rubbed and a fire can be produced from that. So we can be affected by our own defilements or by difficult things that happen for us. And we're up in flames, we're burning. Conversely, on the other hand, he said, you know, if we have body awareness, if we maintain this awareness of the body, awareness of the breath, rather than being like a wet lump of clay, he said, no, we're more like a thick door made of hardwood. Imagine somebody tries to throw a ball of wool at this door. What would happen to the door? He said, in the same way, we're impermeable. We can't be thrown around. We can withstand difficulties. We're like a jug full of water. Nobody can add water to that jug. It's already full up. The mind is filling the body with awareness. Nothing else can penetrate. Nothing can throw us off track. He said it's like a wet, sappy twig or piece of firewood. You can't light a fire with that. It's permeated with water. In the same way, if we fill the body with our mindful attention, we're not able to be thrown around. We can't ignite. We can catch the beginning of any kind of agitation, any kind of reactivity, the arising of any defilement in the mind. We can catch it because we notice immediately something's happening in the body. There's a reactivity right here. It might be a tightening in the belly. It might be a tensing of the shoulders. The breath may become more harsh. There may be heat rising up. We notice. We notice that before we start to react. We notice that before we would normally notice something's impinging upon me here. We notice it early enough to be able to kind of nip it in the bud. How do we do that? Keep paying attention to the body, keep paying attention to the breath. And then these fluctuations are dealt with early on, straight away. The mindfulness can be sharp enough for us to really catch any kind of inclination to react, to get caught up, to burst into flames, to fill up with something we don't need to fill up with. You know, to get traumatized. We don't have to get traumatized by anything. And the Buddha said, you know, if we keep this continuity of awareness of the body, nobody can harm us, nobody can hurt us. And that doesn't mean that we can't physically be harmed and hurt, or even people can still come at us with abusive words, you know, difficult mind states. They can come and sort of hurl at us. But we don't have to have a problem about that, because if we're aware of the body, we immediately know how to respond. We immediately know how to deal with anything coming at us from outside, because we notice straight away, as I said, something's impinging, something's triggering, there's something difficult here. What's happening? How is it? And as soon as we pay attention to the body, we're safe, you know, we're safe. Because if we give our attention to the body, we can't give our attention to reacting. We can't give our attention to burning along with the fire that's coming our way. We don't add fuel to the flames. Actually, we can put them out. We can put them out. We can actually provide a kind of peaceful, receptive container, not just for ourselves, but for the other person. So what a gift. Trauma is not necessary. It's not necessary if we're able to be present. We can prevent ourselves from receiving, taking deeply in any harm or hurt. We can process it, not necessarily immediately, but we definitely can process it with our body awareness, with our breath awareness. This is an enormous protection for us. It's like our shield and armor. And we don't actually have to defend ourselves then. We don't have to put up barriers. We have this shield and armor of mindfulness that protects us. And we can still be very open. We can still be very sensitive. We can still be very intimately connected to all the people and events around us. But we're steady and we're safe and we're able to maintain our equanimity. The Buddha said, if we have well-developed body awareness, our own defilements can't overcome us. So when we're on retreat, in this situation, we are hopefully having quite a peaceful time externally. There's peace and quiet here. It's very safe. We're with like-minded people. We're not likely to have any difficult things happen, I hope, during this retreat. It's a safe space. And the beauty of that, of actually coming to a place of retreat, is that then we can do this deeper work, this inner work. So we sit, we meditate, and see what happens. And I would say even hopefully, but sort of inevitably, what will happen is that past issues will arise. Anything that's troubling us will come up onto the surface. We may remember things from the past that are not yet resolved. There may be some unfinished business. It has a chance to reveal itself to us. We can deal with anxiety, stress, worries, concerns that might not be ongoing right now here in this space, but that are in the mind, that are in the kind of filing cabinet somewhere. They can start to come out. We start to investigate the chitta more deeply, the mind more deeply. And this is the time. This is the time for this work to be done. So, we want to allow whatever arises to arise. And with body and breath awareness, we can notice the defilements, the obstructions, the difficulties as they come up. And we won't be overwhelmed. We'll be able to be with them, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, just to allow. And sometimes it can feel quite stormy on a retreat. We can feel quite, on the edge. It can be surprising how we can be sitting quite calmly to an observer, but inside we may have a lot going on. It can be very stormy, very tumultuous, almost overwhelming at times, but we can be very sure that actually all we have to do is keep coming home to the breath, to the body, and the waves will rise and fall, rise and fall. And we get to know that, don't we? We get to recognize that we can observe. We don't have to get caught up in any phenomena that manifest. We can allow nature to take its course. We can allow strong emotions, strong and painful mind states, powerful obstructions, difficulties to do their thing, arise and pass away. And so, this incredible practice gives us a kind of safe shore to stand upon, where it's like a really wonderful ship or boat, sailing across the ocean. We can chart our course. We can feel safe. Even when it's stormy, even when there's, the seas are raging, we can relax. We know what to do, in short. So I can't really praise this body awareness highly enough. I feel that this is a refuge for us. And from this place of refuge, we just keep watching, keep observing, and everything is teaching us. And the whole process of observing the mind states, the emotions, the moods, the feelings in the body is a process of letting go. Because as they arise, so they pass, arise and pass. And as we see the changing nature of all our experience, of all phenomena, we can quite naturally start to disidentify, to step back from, and recognize that this body, these perceptions, these feelings, these thoughts, memories, emotions, consciousness itself is not me, it's not mine. I can learn. I have the opportunity to let go, to grow in wisdom, and to really free the heart from all kinds of suffering. And so I really want to encourage you all and to really invite you to keep developing the simple, so simple. Sometimes we think it's so simple, it can't be quite the right practice. There must be a higher practice, something that the monks and nuns do, privately, and they're not telling us about. This can't be the only way, but actually it is. Actually it is. Actually, the Buddha was very clear that there is no higher teaching. This is it. To be here, to be aware, to develop all the path factors, as I talked about earlier. But in this context, to really allow ourselves to dwell in the present, to dwell in the body, to feel every breath, try to notice every one, from the beginning of the day right through to the very end. And this is the practice we're all doing. And every monk and nun and every person who has become an arahant, who's become fully liberated, and the Buddha himself did these practices. So I think that's probably enough on the topic of body awareness. I'd like to make some time for people to offer any additional reflections, thoughts, or to ask any questions. Anyone?
Andamayanga Makataya Sadhu Paramgaramase Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu.
So, just like to welcome you all again. Thank you for your kind attention and for being with us on this retreat. And feel free, anybody who'd like to raise a hand, if you have anything you'd like to bring in. Doug, yeah. We'll just get the microphone over to you. Thank you.
So my question is, when it comes to we're practicing body awareness, and afflictive mind states or difficult emotions come up, I feel like I've kind of noticed two schools of thought there in terms of working with them. And so I'm wondering what you might have to say about this, but one is that when these difficult mind states come up, is to notice them perhaps as a defilement or hindrance. and to apply an antidote as soon as you notice it or experience it and kind of dismiss it. And then it seems like I've encountered a second school of thought, which is to, when these mind states come up, to just notice them and be present in the body and allow them to be there and notice them rise and kind of pass away. And so I guess I've kind of heard advice from both those sides. And I'm wondering what I guess you think on the subject, or if both are appropriate in different circumstances, or
Thank you. That's a brilliant question. Thanks, Doug. Okay. Just to check, did you all out there online hear the question? No. Okay. No problem. It's a really great question, and I appreciate it because it's helpful one at this point for us. Doug was saying, you know, he's noticed that there are like two schools of thought on the topic of how to work with the hindrances as they arise in the mind. And one is more or less what I've just been talking about. Just be aware of the body, keep it simple, just come back to the body and watch the hindrance arise and pass. And the other method, he said, which is also taught by many people, and of course the Buddha taught, is to work specifically with the hindrances. So to kind of notice which hindrances are arising, to kind of label them, name them, and then to apply the remedy. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so, you know, both these approaches are helpful. And the Buddha taught so many different ways that we can practice. And Doug has beautifully elucidated these two ways that we can work with the hindrances. When to use which? Yeah, that was the question. I think it's sort of something one can choose for oneself, how to work with. It may be that for somebody who has, you know, a very discerning mind, who tends to have a strong degree of the enlightenment factor of Dhammavichaya, investigation of Dharma. If one is say a wisdom type, somebody who really likes to know, to discern what's going on from moment to moment, then it may be that for such a person, it's really helpful to spot the hindrances, to really notice them as they arise. And then it would be quite natural to apply a remedy, you know, apply the different remedies. I'll talk about that in a moment. For another kind of person, the Buddha actually divided people up in all sorts of different ways. But one way in which he kind of categorized practitioners, he said there are those who are wisdom followers and those who are faith followers. So perhaps the other kind of person, a person who's more of a faith follower, so somebody who's perhaps less discerning in some ways, but very devoted to the teachings and devoted to the practice, but has a more perhaps simple approach. It may be that for such a person, it's not so necessary to name and label their experience, but rather just to practice. And often those kinds of people have not so much a development of wisdom going on, but more a development of samadhi, a development of stillness or focus or concentration. So there are these are very broad categories, and probably nobody's actually 100% one or the other, but it's just ways of practice that different kinds of people might benefit from. And so somebody who's more of a simple samadhi type practitioner, a devotional type of practitioner, a faith type, the hindrance spotting may not work so well. It may just be a feeling of, gee, you know, I've got so much work to do, I have to figure out, what's going on. And then I have to figure out what's the remedy for this or that. It could feel very busy for some people to do that. But as I say, for others, for wisdom types, it can be just the best way forward. So I think it probably, in short, depends a bit on the person. But having said that, we can try, we can all try different ways of practice. I think practice is very much, or should be, a case of kind of being willing to experiment, being willing to try different things out in order to see what really works for us. That can be very helpful. Having said that, for some people, that can be very helpful. Again, for other people, you can give a person a meditation technique such as Anapanasati, and they'll just practice that for the whole life and get very good results. There are very famous Arahant monks, such as Ledi Sayadaw, who was a Burmese master who became an Arahant through practicing Anapanasati, full stop. And that's all he really taught in terms of meditation practice. So again, it depends a bit on the person, but there's certainly a lot of encouragement from the Buddha for us to try things out, test things out, use what works, and let go of what doesn't work for us. So yeah, I've talked about the body awareness approach, the simple approach of really just coming back to the body again and again and developing really consistent body awareness, breath awareness. But we can notice the mind and notice when hindrances arise and apply the different remedies. So if we notice that we have a mind that's full of desire, wanting, these contemplations I was discussing, what's the body made up of? Consider all the body parts. Or the cemetery observations can be super helpful to calm the mind down, or to consider the four elements, to really move the mind away from desire into a calmer place. These are balancing practices. For aversion, if aversion arises, hatred, anger, we really help ourselves by developing loving kindness, bringing the mind to that place, remembering the possibility of metta bhavana, and bringing that in. And actually that's so helpful because I think it's relevant for us. So I'm really glad you asked this question or brought this in because surely during this retreat, if you're really bowled over by a lot of anger or hatred or aversion or irritability, then metta, loving kindness, is really so, so helpful. I'll probably say more about that as we go on in the retreat. Yeah. And I talked earlier about sleepiness, dullness, the hindrance of sloth and torpor, and how we need to energize when that is our state of mind. We need to bring in energy, make more effort, breathe deep, get up, do some walking and so forth. And on the other hand, if we're very restless, very agitated, it's really helpful to focus, really narrow down the range of awareness, come into the body and focus on a particular part of the body or a particular aspect of the breath. So develop samadhi to counter restlessness. And finally, where there's doubt, I mentioned earlier, we need to move away from the thinking mind, redirect the attention. Again, come back to the body. Body awareness is a remedy for doubt. Body awareness is a remedy for everything. But we can use these remedies, these specific remedies for the specific hindrances as well, if that serves us well. So thank you, Dad. Brilliant. And we've just got a tiny bit of time left. If there's any last minute short questions, and I'll give a short answer if so. Jonathan, please.
It's kind of a follow-up to the last question. So I guess my experience often becomes that it's like 3 or 4 hindrances all at once. And so then I can get just kind of overwhelmed and spun out as to where to start. So if you could just talk about that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that in, Jonathan, for yourself, but also for everybody else, because that's often the case, isn't it? That we, if we're really noticing the hindrances, which we benefit greatly from doing, then we can actually get a bit confused sometimes by, okay, how do I actually categorize this? And we can get, multiple hindrance attacks, I can be sleepy and restless at the same time. I think it's remarkable, actually, but I'm sure if I can, then probably so can you. And I can be wanting and not wanting at the same time. And I can have all four of those playing out with a bit of doubt thrown in. So yes, thank you for bringing that in, because what do we do then? And I guess probably two options, I would say, Jonathan. One is to attempt to sort of understand, quite what is going on and see which is strongest, what's most predominant, because we can't really feel two things or experience two things at the same time. So we can notice things fluctuating, but there might be one hindrance, one difficulty that's the predominant one, maybe then we could start with that one and apply the remedy for that one. So say I'm wanting, I'm not wanting, I'm full of restlessness and I'm feeling really fed up and dull as well. Okay, what's the worst thing happening? I think it's the hatred. I think it's that I'm full of hatred. Okay, let me try practicing some metta and bring some metta into the heart. So then the mind is focusing on metta practice, and give that some time and see what happens. And it's actually, for people who have this kind of discernment, who love to investigate the Dharma, it's really rich, isn't it? Because everything we do, we can see that everything we apply, or if we don't do anything, or if we just stay with the body, the situation's constantly changing. And we can just keep abreast of that. It's like surfing the waves. Stay steady, stay present, and see how things are changing all the time. And so even a multiple hindrance attack, will have its different aspects over time. And just to work with one hindrance at a time, apply a remedy, see what's happening next, and then apply something else. It can be a very, how to put it, all-encompassing experience. This is where our meditation becomes really easy, because we're doing the work, So we can actually feel quite glad when we're assailed with hindrances, because the truth is that we're having this opportunity then to overcome them, and we surely will. Our practice is fruitful. Our practice is powerfully effective at such times. It's funny. It's like things turn around when we see things wisely. We recognize that peaceful, blissful meditation may seem to be the best kind of meditation, and being assailed with hindrances one after another or all at once can seem to be like, oh gee, I can't meditate. I'm really not doing very well at all. But actually, if we look more closely, consider more deeply, it can even seem like it's the other way around. When we have a lot to work with, that's good, because we're really kept on our toes. We're really making the most of every moment. When it's easeful and blissful, it's okay. Where's the next hindrance? So, take heart is what I would say. And I hope that's a helpful answer. The other thing that one can do, Jonathan, the second possibility would be just to practice body awareness. Just keep it simple, come back to the body, really focus on the breath. And generally that shatters the hindrances, every single one of them. Thank you. Okay, everybody. Well, it's time to close now. So I'll say good night to you all out there in Zoom land, and wish you all a very good rest of your evening, and look forward to hopefully seeing you over the weekend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ayya.